Yo, what's good everyone? Today I'm going to be breaking down some of my favorite tournament or GPP plays for this Week 6 NFL DraftKings main slate. Let's dive right into it. And like I always do here in these videos, I'm going to give you a high-level overview of my cheat sheet, breaking down a couple of game stacks that I like here for Week 6, as well as some of my favorite individual plays and stacks. But before we dive into that, everyone, just want to mention again, I do run a free Discord channel. We now have over 750 people in there, talking multiple different sports for DFS, talking sports betting as well. So if you want to join that, there's a link to do so in the description below, as well as in the pinned comment below. With that being said, let's dive into a couple of game stacks that I like here for this week, starting with this game between the Packers and Cardinals. And I like stacking up the Packers side of things for two main reasons. Number one, this secondary for the Cardinals is one of the worst in the NFL. Jordan Love and his pass catcher should be able to beat them on a regular basis. And number two, they're kind of going overlooked here in Week 6. And I believe that's because last week they were super popular in Week 5 going up against the Rams, and while they didn't play bad, they really didn't meet that ceiling expectation either that we're looking for in our tournament lineup. So I like going back to them here. That's something that I will do in tournaments. You get burnt the week before, you kind of come back to them the next week, especially in a good matchup like this. So I like stacking up Love here with Jaden Reed as #1 pass catcher, and yes, I like mixing in Dobbs there at $5,200. And if you want to get off of that play, I completely understand it. He was suspended last week by his own team, but he is going to be ready to play here in Week 6. Sounds like they kind of want to highlight him and bring that confidence back early and often, so we'll see if that comes to fruition. But again, if you want to fade that, I understand it, but I do like running it back here with Trey McBride. I also think that we could mix in James Conner as well. And then another game that I like targeting here this week is this game between the Cowboys and Lions, and this will be a popular game to target in general here for Week 6, but there's also a number of different ways that we could stack it up to differentiate our tournament lineups. And one of the ways that I like doing that here is stacking up Dak with his top two pass catchers in CeeDee Lamb and Jake Ferguson, because that secondary for the Lions really struggles, but they also have one of the best run defenses in the NFL, hence the reason I like going with the passing attack here for the Cowboys, and then running it back with David Montgomery and Sam Laporta. Now, I like Montgomery here, as well as Jahmyr Gibbs if you wanted to go that route, but this Cowboys run defense is also one of the worst in the NFL. Again, part of the reason I like going with the rushing attack here for Detroit. But with Sam Laporta here, one of the ways that we can differentiate our lineups is putting two tight ends in the same lineup. So we're doing that there with Ferguson and Laporta. And I know that it's been the Amon-Ra St. Brown show this year, the Jameson Williams show. Both those running backs have played well. Sam Laporta's kind of been left in the shadows, but he is going to have one of those 20-25 point performances before we know it. Hit 4-5x value at his price, probably score multiple touchdowns in a game. Why not in this game here that has a lot of shootout potential, and he's also someone that's going to go overlooked or under-owned in tournaments. Now folks, before we dive into some of my favorite individual plays and stacks here, if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, it's completely free to do, and I would greatly appreciate that. Alright, now diving into these individual plays and stacks here, we're going to kick it off with the quarterbacks, and the first guy that I got there is Jaden Daniels of the Washington Commanders. This was also another game that I could have highlighted from a game stack perspective between them and the Ravens. If you wanted to roll out Lamar Jackson with Zay Flowers, I got no issues with that, but I think that Jaden Daniels is someone who's going to fly under the radar this week. And I don't know if he should be. We saw what Joe Burrow did to that secondary for Baltimore last week, threw 5 touchdowns on them, and no, I don't expect Jaden to throw for 5 touchdowns in this game, but 2, 3, maybe run one in. That's the tournament upside that he brings, and I love stacking him up there with Terry McLaurin. Now, we could run it back in that game there with Derrick Henry. I probably don't need to say much about this guy. He is the epitome of a tournament running back, someone who could get you 15 DraftKings points in this game, but could also get you close to 40 DraftKings points. And then Joe Mixon there, I think, could be sneaky. Now, there's no official word if he's going to be playing on Sunday. I know that's going to scare some people off, but he was back at practice on Thursday and Friday. Sounds like he is going to be good to go. And that Patriots run defense has not been great to start the year, so I think mixing here could be sneaky in tournaments, especially considering that Nico Collins is now on the IR. The Houston Texans might look to run the ball just a little bit more going forward. Najee Harris here, just want to briefly mention him. This is a great spot for him to get right against this Vegas Raiders defense. They have not been able to stop the run either this year. I know Najee is, I guess, concerning is probably the way to put it. He has not been fantastic, has not topped 100 rushing yards, and has not found the end zone either. but maybe this is the week that he gets right. He is, again, someone who's more of a tournament play, who could go for 8 points in this game or get you 20-25. Now, moving on to the wide receivers here, I kind of highlighted Zay Flowers already. I like that game in general between the Commanders and the Ravens. You can see I got Terry McLaurin there as well. Both these guys could hit 4 or 5x value at their current price in the mid 6K range. And then George Pickens, just like Najee Harris, this is a good spot for him against this Raiders defense. I probably don't want to play both in my lineup. Not really too high on the Steelers to score a bunch of points, but putting in one of those guys in my tournament lineup, I think could be successful. A couple of honorable mentions on the wide receiver side of things here. I got Rashid Shaheed. Yes, I'm well aware that Spencer Rattler is going to be the starting quarterback this week, but he's the type of guy that could have 3 catches in this game for 100 receiving yards and score multiple touchdowns. Again, he is the epitome of a tournament player. And Demario Douglas, I talked about this in my cash plays video already. If you haven't checked that out yet, highly recommend it. There's a lot of plays in there that will be in my tournament lineups too, but there's 3 reasons why I like Demario Douglas. Number 1, the price. Number 2, because their head coach in the Patriots came out a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, we need to get this guy more involved in our offense. And number 3, Drake May, who's going to be starting for the Patriots at quarterback this week, compared him to Josh Downs of the Colts. If you guys remember, May loved throwing the ball to Downs while they were at UNC together. Now, moving on to the tight ends here, the first guy that I got is Brock Bowers. Now, I liked this play a lot more, assuming that Jacoby Myers was not going to play on Sunday. He hadn't practiced all week, but as I started recording this, I looked it up. Myers is back at practice here on Friday in a limited fashion, so let's keep an eye on that. Assuming that Myers does not play, I really do like Brock Bowers, but if Myers comes back on Sunday, I am going to downgrade him just a little bit. Kyle Pitts, what do we do with this guy? Now, I like the Falcons in general here. Talked about them a lot in my cash plays video earlier here today. I think there's a number of different guys that we could roster in that game. But man, Pitts is the one guy that's flying under the radar, coming in around 6% ownership. And last week, they said they wanted to get him more involved. That's what happened. He saw 8 catches in that game, 9 targets. Could they keep the ball rolling here to Pitts this week against Carolina? It's a really good spot for him to have a good game. And then wrapping it up there with the defenses, we got the Steelers taking on Aiden O'Connell and the Raiders, who are still missing Devontae Adams, and the Steelers have been lights out through 5 weeks. You could do a little mini stack with Najee Harris in the Steelers defense. You got the Buccaneers taking on Spencer Rattler in his first start, and then the Patriots here. I know this looks like a tough matchup on paper against the Houston Texans. Talked about Joe Mixon either, but maybe the Houston Texans kind of slow things down here this week, being that Nico Collins is on the IR, and maybe they just struggle a little bit. Again, they're the cheapest defense at $2,400, so if you're really looking to spend up for the skill position players, I don't mind the Pats here. Alright everyone, that is going to wrap up this video here for today. As always, thank y'all for taking the time out of your day to watch the content here on this channel. If you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. Let's have ourselves a great weekend here, folks. Let's win some money on this Week 6 main slate.